Mr. Rossow, I'll begin by asking you, how do you look at Operation Sindoor that targeted terror infrastructure in Pakistan? And how do you look at India's response to the escalation by Pakistan on 22nd April?
Yeah, we have seen a steady escalation the times that India suffered terror attacks. Looking back to 2016, when India took the step on initiating a cross-border ground assault against terror camps in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, and then, of course, in 2019, where you actually had air assaults on Pakistan proper, this was a different form of escalation, a large number of targets, and once the escalation began, for India to begin hitting military bases was a step in kind of a new direction as well. So I think it's an important moment when I think Pakistan understands that India is not just going to play the normal game of diplomatic measures, that the counterattacks and the separation that Pakistan always hoped for between terror camps and military, India views as a lot less different than what they did in times past. So meaningful changes, I think, in how we've seen this escalation from times past.
Pakistan has been making false claims and fake narratives to build a false agenda, while India, on the other side, has given various proofs for the targeted hit. Your response on that?
Well, I think both sides are involved in disinformation. The Indian government still hasn't acknowledged what did or did not happen. How many planes were shot? It's hard to imagine zero because there has been some wreckage found. So I don't think either side can say that they've got clear information that they've shared necessarily with what transpired there. So I think the rest of us are still trying to figure things out. I know there's been some work done on satellite imagery to actually pinpoint what actually took place. But a lot of us still don't know exactly what happened on either side. So we do know, luckily, cessation of hostilities. Both governments appear to have embraced that. So hopefully it'll stick. And, again, we're just kind of waiting and seeing, will the international community get more active against Pakistan-supported terrorism? Or is this going to be something else that'll bubble up again in, 2-5 years or something like that?
US President Donald Trump is repeating his claims and crediting himself for India-Pakistan ceasefire, even as New Delhi has categorically rejected his claims about the US playing a mediation role. New Delhi has also dismissed his claims about using the threat to stop trade with both India and Pakistan to make them agree on halting cross-border military actions. What is your comment on that?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine American voice having much say in Delhi. But a lot more say in terms of how Islamabad and Rawalpindi would be thinking about it. And not just the United States, of course. We saw Saudi's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs was in Islamabad just as things were beginning to escalate as well. So I'm sure that there was pressure applied by the global community that geared towards Pakistan, recognizing that India suffered the first attack in this latest escalation and wanting to make sure that India had to have the last say, the last voice, the last hit. And for Pakistan to kind of agree to take whatever that last hit was going to be and begin moving forward had to be the message, but it had to be conveyed a lot more forcefully in Pakistan than anything we would say to Delhi.
Mr. Rossow, what's your comment on the global response that India has been getting so far? Most of the countries came out in support of India in its fight against terrorism, while there are also countries like Turkey and China who are supporting Islamabad militarily.
Yeah, I think overall India has a lot deeper relationships with a much larger set of countries. They certainly have made their voice known over time on concerns about the ever-present threat of terrorism emanating from Pakistan. So to see that most countries that stepped in and voiced an opinion on this at all were siding with India, the countries that maybe felt otherwise, might have been a little bit quieter or offered their support more quietly to Islamabad. But India has done a lot of work on trying to be a leader progressively in the global south, its leadership at the G20, its engagement with the West, the Quad, things like that. So not terribly surprising, India finds a lot more friends when something like this escalates than maybe would have happened 25, 30 years ago.
Right. In other global news, Donald Trump has met Syrian president in Saudi Arabia and said that Washington is exploring normalizing ties with Syria a day after an announcement that all U.S. sanctions on Syria would be lifted. How do you see this development?
Well, it's not the first time that you've seen President Trump engage folks. I think back to his first term when we had heavy engagement. First, I think a little bit more tense engagement, but then more positive with North Korea. So, President Trump doesn't think that necessarily any actions, anything that he's seen governments take before should necessarily influence the way that he chooses to engage. So in some sense, it came out of left field. Nobody was thinking about Syria as the next place that he would begin embracing. But, kind of par for the course of what we've seen about him embracing dictators, folks that otherwise have been seen as, unengageable by U.S. administrations. So surprise at Syria at this moment. Not terribly surprised by the fact that he did it, though.
Network 18 decimates Times Internet with over 6 times more unique users on social media. Network 18, the undisputed leader of news networks. Way ahead of the times.